Use only as directed.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Well, your dadgum government, you started so-and-so's. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, your dad.
Anything about it.
Good morning, Muskegon. This is Eye on Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios with my engineer, the legendary Oscar Osbo. And we welcome all of you in radio, computer, smartphone, and podcast land to Eye on Muskegon. We are Muskegon County's #1 rated political talk radio show. The fact that we are the only political talk radio show in the county makes us #1, 2, 3, and 4. And we are the show that does want to put you on the radio, so give us a call right now if you're interested in engaging us. Our phone number, 231-830-3109. And as I've said before, what happens in Muskegon doesn't just happen in Muskegon, doesn't just stay in Muskegon. Listen up. We're going to find out what the power brokers in our community don't want you to know. And the big money spenders in your town would just as soon you don't know either. Most Michiganders, as I've said this before, but I got to keep pounding it out there, most of us pay more money in state and local taxes than we do in federal taxes. So that what happens here locally matters big time. And don't forget, you've got water, sewer, electric, natural gas, trash pickup. Those bills are skyrocketing. And it's usually the very nice, friendly city council person, state rep, or county commissioners who are in the thick of that ever-increasing spend-a-thon. And you folks, and me too, are the wimpy spendee. They're spend-a-thoning on our nickel. Today, it's November 6th, and we are here with John VanWyke, and we'll be talking about Muskegon's summer celebration. Good morning, John.
Full moon last night. Well, almost full moon last night.
Well, I guess
it's just Friday, isn't it? It's on 11/11/11 is also the full moon, which is.
Well, I'll go with you. I'll go with you on that. I didn't look. I was watching that Alabama LSU game. Yeah.
I watched that from the Circle Bar at the MGM Grand last night.
Okay, we're going to get into that because John is our correspondent from Detroit this weekend. But we are going to talk about the summer celebration, and as most of you are aware, a lot of headlines. I went to their website earlier this week, the Muskegon Summer Celebration's official website, and it was really quite sad. It said we are shutting down, thanks to all the volunteers and all of the folks who've worked over the years. And that celebration really was, to me, what Muskegon County really embodied. It was just fantastic. It was a little smaller than Summerfest in Milwaukee, but Summerfest is Milwaukee, and Summer Celebration was, until just recently, Muskegon County.
Well, Jim, people 15 or almost 20 years ago said the same thing when Lumbertown Music Festival went away. And before that, before Lumbertown Music Festival, people about 10 years before that said, oh, my God, what are we going to do? Seaway Festival went away. And about 20 years before that, going back into the 1950s, people said, oh, my God, Aquapades is going away. What are we going to do? Before that, World War II happened. Aquapades started right after World War II.
And remember the concern that there would be no more dinosaurs.
And back in the 30s, they had a big celebration down at what is now the Mart Dock, and was called the Lumber Festival. And it celebrated Muskegon's centennial in 1936. And they carried that on for a couple of more years before World War II started. And there wasn't a big fear that the festival went away because it was a war era and everything else. But when the Greater Muskegon JC's, Junior Chamber of Commerce, started Aquapades, and about 1947, 1948 was the first year that it happened. And pretty much through the 50s, Aquapades happened, big water thrill show out in Muskegon Lake, and they had bands down at the Mart Dock property, and that went on, and it went away in the 50s. And
so what you're suggesting is that there's a history.
There's a history,
and it never ends on one day.
No, well, we got a history of festivals surrounding 4th of July in Muskegon that seem to run their course. And they run their course in that either adaptations are not made to economic conditions, or they're not made to what the public wants, or things get stale when it comes to festivals and events. And I know you and a lot of your listening audience have known me for years, that I've been involved in a lot of different festivals, and right now I'm involved with the one that's a fairly startup project in Muskegon, called Bike Time. We're going into our 6th year of Bike Time. But we've got to have the attitude with the board of directors of festivals, whether it's the old Shoreline Spectacular that got stale ourselves. We got complacent in who the sponsors were. We got complacent in what the public wanted to see. And basically, that old Shoreline Spectacular, it's been being revitalized now, but it went through a transition. The Labor Day Festival wasn't going to happen because it got stale. And unfortunately, with Summer Celebration, it got to a point where there was maybe some complacency there and saying it's always going to be successful because it's summer and it's Muskegon and it's a beautiful place. Well, the complacency turned into sponsors that were being lost, and then budgets that had to be cut, and people's expectations were high, and the expectations were now not being met. It's a pretty simple formula when you think about any kind of business. I mean, if you're still making buggy whips and it's the 1950s, really, if you're in the saddle repair business, and you didn't convert to working on internal combustion engines, you have a problem.
Well, it's true. The trouble is if you had a saddle business and you converted it to a buggy whip business, you're going to have problems. And one of the things I noticed when I was doing my show prep is that going back to, it's a little hard to figure the exact numbers, but it's either 2005, 2006. The festival had really done a tremendous job, and they had about $800,000 in cash. Now, they took over the debt, which I think is, a lot of people are unaware of this. I was unaware. When the Muskegon Summer Celebration began, and it replaced the Great Lumbertown Festival, Lumbertown Festival had a debt, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either $30,000 or $60,000.
Yeah, it was in that neighborhood.
It was a number that back then was fairly significant. And the Summer Celebration group.
And those were more obligations that the group of people that got together, they owed, I believe it was Pepsi-Cola, might have been Coca-Cola.
Okay.
They owed them several $1,000s, but it was a locally held distributorship, and and a lot of the businesses really didn't expect to get paid. But these guys, they felt they had an obligation to saying, okay, we want to carry this forward, we want a good name, and they paid off some of the debtors.
Well, they did the right and honorable thing.
There wasn't a legal action or anything else that was going on against that board at the time. And I think you find that in a lot of festivals and groups of people in Muskegon, they feel that they need to repay the people that started something and worked so hard for many years to make that happen. And a lot of them were vendors, so to speak, that needed to be paid off.
So they did the right thing.
They did the right thing, absolutely.
And as we came up to the point where the airfare, that wonderful airfare, I just absolutely loved it, but it also ran into financial problems.
Sure did.
And was taken over by the Summer Celebration organization, and they had about $200,000 worth of debt. And given that the managers of the Summer Celebration group had done a spectacular job and had a fairly large kitty, this $800,000 or so dollars, they also ate, but again, I think did the right thing, and they paid off the air show debt. Now, this goes back, it's not that long ago. It's, 5-6 years ago. It's back in 2005, 2006. But even with the paying off, they still had a fair amount of money in the kitty, if you will. Money for a rainy day or money for whatever. And then things started to go sour very quickly. And one of the things that I did in looking at show prep was I looked at the attendance figures. And there's been a lot of concern and a lot of accusation, I guess is what I would say, of people saying that, oh, my gosh, the picking of the bands has been awful, and that's what's causing the problems. Well, attendance numbers really weren't significantly different for the last 5 years, well, forgetting last year. But even in 2009, the attendance figures were not significantly down from the attendance figures in years gone by. So what do you think happened?
Well, there's a couple of very significant things that happened, and I'm, again, not pointing fingers at the city of Muskegon. City of Muskegon, about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, because of budget crunches and because of revenue sharing that stopped coming to the city of Muskegon, and a lot of factors, some more businesses were being closed in Muskegon, so the income tax revenue was starting to diminish a little bit. they were faced with saying, okay, we provide all of these services for Summer Celebration, for Shoreline Spectacular, for any festival that went on in the city of Muskegon, including police and fire, and Department of Public Works and barricades and parks and recreations that provide picnic tables and waste containers and all those kind of things. The city said, if we're going to continue to provide those kind of services at a very high level to protect the people that are coming in here to make the city look good, we can no longer afford to do that from the city of Muskegon taxpayers paying that freight.
Okay, let's focus on this just for a sec. Are you saying then that prior to 2006 or so, that the city provided all of these services at no charge?
Pretty much, yes.
So in other words, when the police, I don't think the firemen were that much involved, were they?
They called on emergencies, and they had standby people there, on overtime that weren't sitting at the fire station.
So they had to have the fire, and obviously we saw the police presence there, and I would imagine most of this service was provided on overtime. Well, it was provided for free up to a point, but it was overtime. So it wasn't just the regular police officer or fireman.
Beyond that, and especially if you think about 4th of July and
very expensive. Okay,
and how with the traffic control that takes to do the downtown Muskegon when you put an influx of 150,000 people in downtown Muskegon all at one time and all wanting to leave at the same time. That there's quite a bit of traffic control. There are a dozen officers out there directing traffic to get people out of their
That sounds very expensive to me, to go from zero to full-blown overtime of all these professionals.
Absolutely.
Any sense of what that amount was?
I believe if you look at the Muskegon Summer Celebrations budget, and I don't know this for a fact, guessing, I would think it's close to between $300,000 and $500,000 a year. That was that's added in.
It's a bingo right out of nowhere.
Okay, yeah, and it's one of these kind of things. The county, and at the same time, is saying, okay, can we afford to provide Heritage Landing for free? Well, they figured out a way to do that, but and we could talk about that in a little bit. But they still the county has electricians down there because, it's all the county facilities, and they need electricians down there to provide power for the stage and all the beverage service places and vendors and everything else.
Is this where they came up with the $1 per ticket county surcharge?
The county subsidized a lot of that through that $1 surcharge that's going on down there. But also there was a little bit of a promise there made to the infrastructure improvements are going to get made down there, and there were some infrastructure improvements made with the electrical service that was down there. You imagine what a power it takes to fire up all of that sound equipment and amplifiers and video equipment and everything else it takes, and lights.
All the big jumbotrons. And all that.
That's not your normal street light stuff. You got to have the power down there, and the Consumers Energy's got to provide the three-phase power and all that kind of stuff for making that, and all of the stuff that's needed for, even though they bring in a lot of generators, there's still a lot of power over where the midway is.
So the county provided extra things without a significant charge. Now, they did put this $1 ticket fee. I know it was quite controversial at the time. But my reading is that they kept deferring the collection of that. Is that correct, or did the county ever collect the $1 per ticket?
Oh, yeah, I believe they're collecting it. I believe they are. Not real sure.
Okay, all right. So there were fees. So in other words, out of nowhere, in addition to some other things which we'll talk about, but out of nowhere you had some really significant bumps up in just the absolute cost of doing the concerts.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, we have the other situation, which was the cost of the talent, which big time. Lots of different things came out in competition with our summer celebration.
That's a change in the last, and Oscar, can pipe in about the change in the concert venues over the last decade and a half. Mm-hmm. If you think about the big name, the performers now, they're performing at Comerica Park.
Right.
They're not performing in the Walker Arena, and they want big dollars for the big name. If you listen to WMUS or WMRR on a regular basis, and you listen to those performers that are on there, these people are in the $500,000 to $1 million category.
Right.
And you don't get those kind of headliners in the Muskegon, so you're having to go to the working bands that we've had at Muskegon Summer Celebration, the Earth, Wind, and Fires, and the Buddy Guys, and those kind of people. These people are working on a regular basis. They're not just going out and doing 40 or 50 concerts a year in Walker Arenas. They're working every weekend at casinos all over the country, and so they're in high demand, and so their price goes up. So the cost of performers and the availability of performers has really kind of priced the old pricing scheme at Summer Celebration it made it 1990s, so to speak.
Well, one thing I did notice as an attendee, the prices of the tickets went up quite a bit also. So if you have the increased costs.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, you were talking about Toby Keith that one time, too, about being $30 a ticket.
Right.
Where a lot of average people couldn't afford that price. Now, you said that they filled the place up, but did they justify it as far as the price?
Did they cover the cost?
Yeah, did they cover the cost?
My understanding...
Toby Keith at the Van Andel, you're going to pay $55 to $60 a ticket. The Van Andel. And the Van Andel holds, close to what Summer Celebration holds.
Or like Pine Knob. The Pine Knobs where they get
Absolutely.
these, bands in, but you're paying $15. Yep. So, I mean, but you got a venue where you can hold,
right.
3 times as many people. So,
well, I want to talk about the Toby Keith thing in just a minute. Okay. We will come back. We're going to continue our conversation with John VanWyke and Oscar Osbo about the future of Muskegon Summer Celebration. Give us a call. Join the discussion. Our number is 231-830-3109. We will be back.
Don't you let me sometime.
Day in the news.
Chevrolet is celebrating its 100th anniversary, and at Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC, the party is growing with even bigger discounts on all new Chevrolets. Right now, choose from a large selection of Chevy Silverado 4x4s, all with extra bonus cash. That means rebates up to $6,500 or zero for 72 months. Plus, get discounts up to $14,000 and make no payments until spring. Listen to these just announced sign and drive deals. Benton says the best down payment is no down payment. Sign and drive a Chevy Cruze, just $168 a month or less. Malibu's $188. Sign and drive Silverado 4-wheel drive extended cabs, only $299 or less. No money down or make no payments until spring. At Benton, we can lower your current monthly payments with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss the giant 100th anniversary sale going on now at Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC's 20-acre motor mall on Henry Street, Muskegon. Sign and drive deals are back at Benton.
I'm sure you're thinking, boy, I'd like to pay less for my car insurance, but switching seems like a lot of work. All the hassle and whatnot. Well, I'm here to tell you that is simply not the case. Geico makes it so easy to switch and start saving money straight away, without getting buried in a ton of paperwork. That actually happened to me once. Literally, I was buried under my income taxes for 6 days.
fws.gov/refuges.
For a free rate quote, visit geico.com. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Exclusively at the Home Depot, save time and money with Behr Premium Plus Ultra Paint. It's an affordable paint and primer in one, and rated #1 by a leading consumer study. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot.
Talking to your teens about sex can be one of the most uncomfortable conversations you can ever have, but you have to do it. November 30th from 6 to 8 p.m., you're invited to the Talk Early, Talk Often workshop that will be held at Oak Ridge Schools. For information and registration, call 231-788-7553.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Back at EyeOnMuskegon. And folks, if you want your voice heard, we're the people to come to. Give us a call, 830-3109. We want you to be on the radio. We're talking with John VanWyke and Oscar about Muskegon's summer celebration. And I'd like to just go back because we were talking about the Toby Keith concert, which I attended, which was fantastic. And as John said, it was really inexpensive compared to seeing Toby Keith anyplace else. But in checking with the folks who were running the shows at the time, the Toby Keith concert didn't make a lot of money, but I have been told on many occasions that the concerts themselves really don't bring in money. They are the reason that people come in to the summer celebration grounds, Heritage Landing grounds, and they buy beer and they buy pop and they buy food and other types of things, which really pays the bills, which provides the profit, if you will. So it seems to me that the Toby Keith experiment turned out to be a pretty good experiment. What's your view of that?
Well, it definitely turned out to be a great experiment. But, Jim, I think you've got to understand, too, within the last decade and a half, since Summer Celebration has been in existence for 18, 19 years, What's changed in your own mind about the liquor enforcement in the state of Michigan and the liquor laws and the punishments of liquor laws? And I think if you talk to any establishment owner, whether it's Mayor Warmington or Steve Sang or some of the guys that have owned beverage establishments in bars, taverns in the Muskegon area, they're going to tell you their business is down significantly over what it was a decade and a half ago, and in liquor sales. And is it because we've become more responsible? Well, maybe the government's forced us to be more responsible, but people aren't consuming as much alcohol as they used to consume.
Is that the case at Summer Celebration? Because that's not what I had been led to believe, excepting 2010.
Yeah,
but 2011. 2010 was the beer and wine and all those sales were down in terms of dollar numbers significantly from the years before.
Yeah, and it's steadily gone down. And you talk to anybody that works on festivals and events that have been in existence for a long time, and they will tell you that year after year, even if your attendance stays the same, your alcohol consumption has gone down.
So the business plan...
And again, at the same time, your costs are rising in liquor liability insurance and the product itself. And if you look at a classic example is Parties in the Park in Muskegon. When Parties in the Park were first started back in the mid to late 80s, and when it became its heydays in the 90s, charities, were waiting in line to see if their name got pulled out of the thing, because on a good weather day and at Parties in the Park, the charity could literally take home, after all the bills were paid, $20,000. Yeah. Now, I belong to the Rotary Club. We had a good Rotary Club one last year, and Rotary actually ended up losing a little money. The costs again are so. I'll go back to some city services again. Those costs are added in there, but again, the overall cost has gone up for all of these events, and liquor liability is a huge one, and the bonding and everything else that has to take place. But again, the cost rise and the consumption goes down.
Okay.
And at the same time, you can't sell a beer for $10. You got to keep your price the same.
Let's go back then, because it sounds to me that the original business plan, which was so successful, which was bring in the concerts and just break even, and then make your profit selling other things, beer and others being primary. But that business plan over the years is, or at least at this point, it may very well not be a business plan that's going to survive going in the future.
The model shifted.
But my question would be, is this didn't happen overnight. We know that things were booming in the early 2000s, and then sometime in the mid 2000s they started to boom less and turned very, very sour towards the last half of the decade. So what you have the managers, and I don't mean to throw stones at the folks who the volunteers in particular, who work so hard trying to make this go, but there were some decisions that were made that perhaps will be rethought if we're ever going to resurrect this. There's a new task force that's looking to do that. And I'd like to focus on some of the decisions that you think and the rest of us think maybe that were not the best. The one I would first off bring up would be what a Stephen Jobs, who's running a company, might say, that, you know what, we're not making enormous amounts of money selling computers.
Right.
That business plan needs to be changed. Right. Well, what we have in Muskegon County at Summer Celebration was a business plan that was pretty clear for a lot of reasons. Costs going up, selling of the product, your money product is going down. What could have been done, what should have been done, because they didn't just wake up this summer and say, oh my golly, that business plan doesn't work. What do you think they might have been able to do, and what decisions didn't they make?
Well, a lot to me, and obviously I worked on the festival, not on the board, but as a committee member, literally, as a worker bee for
a big time worker bee,
15, 16 years. But and again, the view that we got from working the backstage area was that they didn't adapt to the listening audience and the real big crowds. They didn't pay attention for some reason. I'm sure they did, but they didn't pay attention to. And if you talk to Mark and Pam, you talk to Mark and Pam. I mean, 10 years ago they were saying, "Why do we only have one country night?"
Right, exactly.
What country nights sell out and people drink, and yet they stayed with one country night for 10 years.
Right. Can you answer that question? Because that's a great question. Why why.
They tried to, and again, these are community people. These are people that look at the overall community too, not just summer celebration, in their daily lives and their jobs that they have.
Okay.
And they want to make sure that the community, it's all inclusive of the community. So they went.
But wasn't their charge, their goal, to make summer celebration a success?
I would think it would be, but again, are you going to subsidize certain concerts with other concerts?
You think that happened?
Absolutely, it did. Absolutely. There were some acts that were brought into Muskegon where they didn't sell any beer at all during the night.
Right.
Okay, because they wanted a Christian gospel music group in there.
That was kind of what I was...
And so you take one whole night out of summer celebration where you don't have any alcohol revenue, and you're going, we need to repeat that again next year. It was so successful, we had a lot of people coming out. Well, you did. You had a lot of people coming out, and they paid the parking fees. They didn't buy any alcohol. And if alcohol is one of your main sources of revenue, you don't bring in a gospel music concert.
That's just like I was saying before we talked about the Irish Music Festival. The Irish Music Festival is successful because you got something that people want to see. You bring something that people want to see, they're going to come, they're going to drink, and like you say, the people that, an Irish Music Festival, they like to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were other...
isn't that kind of I guess it wouldn't be a racial comment, but isn't that a slur at those of us with an Irish background?
Well, I have an Irish background, so I guess, yeah, it is.
Okay.
From an Irish Catholic
live with it, huh?
We used to drink, quite a bit.
Yeah. And you guys have fun.
We had fun,
You'll spend money doing it.
All right, well, then moving right along. Okay, then you know what? If we'd have stayed with that, we might very well still have our concert
But
system.
again, there are many other examples. If you look at the lineup, if you saw the lineup for the last 15 years, I could circle ones that are saying, why did they bring that band in there? And why did they bring two of those kind of bands in there in 1 year?
Or in that particular night.
And yet the country, was only in the last 2 years that they started doing 2 nights of country. And I don't think last year. I think they just had one night of country. Charlie Daniels Band was in.
Let me dwell in onto what you just said here, because this has been a thought in the back of my mind also. But what you have is, and I fully understand that you've got a rich cultural stew of folks who are on who are the trustees, different people.
Right, sure.
Like you say, they had the community at large in mind, but. Obviously, that particular mindset didn't work out all that well. In that they've had to close the entire event, at least from their standpoint. If you had one person or one company who was a profit-making company, which I know we'll talk about the bike time in just a moment, but would we not have been maybe better off to hire a profit-making company whose interest was not in greater Muskegon, but in fact whose interest was in running a profitable, long-lived concert series? Maybe they would have been able to say, look, we're going to pick who we want. That's what we got to charge.
Right.
I will just say this. In doing my math, or looking at the numbers, it appears people like to focus on Joe Austin's salary, which it looks to me have gone somewhere in the 60s to somewhere in the 70s. But that's not the whole story. You need to look at the entire numbers of staff, support, retirement, all the various things going out to shows to learn more stuff like that. And we were spending in the neighborhood of $250,000 for that group about 5-6 years ago. I'm looking at the 990 form that nonprofits must publish, and as high as close to $200,000 this past year. So for $200,000 expense, which the summer celebration leaders invested, if you will, we might very well have been able to hire somebody who would have not charged us the $200,000.
And again, for the time it was set up, and it was a model that had been followed in a lot of different festivals and events in Muskegon and other communities, that they didn't look at the adapting and changing the organizational structure maybe like they should have. And it's not faulting the people that were in there. They had a model that was working, and then all of a sudden it went south on
them. But it didn't all of a sudden, because they lost money in 2000, I believe, 5 or 6. So it's
but that was airfare. I mean, that was airfare, wasn't it?
No. If you look at the numbers, they had $800,000 in their kitty in the 2005 or 6. They paid the airfare $200,000. every year from that moment on, that kitty shrunk. They lost money every single year from the mid-2000s.
And again, I mean, the organizational change, obviously, over a period of time, they should have made some organizational changes. But, hindsight is 20/20.
Well, no, we're not looking here to blast people. We're looking to blast ideas.
Yeah, I know.
Because some of the ideas, and I think you hit a big one, which was maybe taking the focus away from a profit-making, or at least a significantly strong break-even focus on a summer concert series, to drifting into other areas, especially at a time of, I think, very reasonably increasing costs.
You've got to continually look at organizational change and what's best for the event and best for the community, and can you make those organizational changes? And if you've got an ego that says, no, we're doing the best we can and everything else. I think, again, some economic conditions changed that they didn't adapt quickly enough to.
Well, they bought a building. They bought a building in downtown Muskegon.
Yeah, and I think that is now owned by Roger Eichenberry, isn't it?
I don't know. It shows up on the 990 still.
Yeah.
But the 990 I'm looking at is from last year.
But again, when you start losing major sponsors, you got to start adapting. And when your costs are rising, you got to take a look at the overall structure. And I don't know if they ever explored looking for an outside firm to come in to do it or not, but I'm sure they're big examples, and obviously some of the major tourism spots. And Milwaukee is our neighbors to the west are probably the best example of it. How do they manage the festival boards over in Milwaukee and the Mayor Festival grounds in Milwaukee? How do they do that? How do they make that profitable? Obviously, they've got a little bit, quite a bit different economic structure with Miller and Harley Davidson being there, and a couple other very big companies being there and wanting to support that community.
Well, Milwaukee had, according to published reports anyway, they were up 2.6% in attendance. Now, that's just a human being number. That's not a dollar number. But
again, how are they organized to do Summerfest? And I've got some answers on how they do that in Milwaukee.
Well, let's go to them.
Well, I mean, basically, the Mayor Festival grounds in the city of Milwaukee, city-owned, is a business. I mean, it is a true business with permanent infrastructure and attractions and things that are there year-round, actually, but they only use them during the summertime. But that festival ground's busy every weekend. It does that, and it does it as a profit center. And they have the big enough venues there that are in place. Their cost structure is a whole lot different. If you look at the cost structure of putting on Summer Celebration, if you balanced them out and said, okay, they're the same size festival. They have permanent restrooms over in Milwaukee. They don't bring in sausage wagons in there. They've got permanent buildings that they bring in, vendors that they rent space out to. There's a whole lot of different. The staging areas that they've got over there have permanent lighting towers and permanent sound towers and permanent video towers. And they built an infrastructure over there that literally you and I could walk in there and say, we want to do a whatever kind of festival, but they do. They've got Irish festival over there and German festival.
Well, don't they have to pass
Native
those
American
costs on, though, to the other groups that come in and put festivals on? Because I know they've got festivals, as you said, running all summer.
But it's a festival board that controls that whole thing. They really run them themselves.
Is that something? I mean, right now we're out of money. The county's out of money.
Right.
The city's out of money. The festival is officially broke. There doesn't appear that there's going to be that kind of money coming from anywhere that would provide this type of infrastructure. So we have the problems that we have. I mean, you wake up in the morning and they're not going to go away. Can you think of anything? We are going to talk in the next segment here about what the future holds. Right. But can you personally think of anything that would help some of these situations, would make them better?
For now or in the future? I mean,
well, let's start talking going forward.
Okay, let's talk talking going forward. I think there's been a lot of attention paid, and the Muskegon Chronicle is on, oh my God, what are we going to do kind of scenario for 4th of July next year, and oh my God, we've got this beautiful place, and I've always called it since back in Oscar and I's early days, our little piece of paradise on Michigan's west coast, and it's a great place. People come here in the summertime. We know that. And They come here to Michigan Adventure. They come here for our beautiful beaches and campgrounds and all the great things there are to come here and vacation. So that is so much working in our favor. But now all of a sudden we've got this, oh, my God, what are we going to do on 4th of July next year? And, oh, my God, what are we going to do if we don't have 11 days of music in downtown Muskegon? Let's hurry up and get a committee together and figure out where we can get a sponsor to sponsor the fireworks. And
well, that's kind of where we are now, because this new group, they call the new task force, right, which is being led, my understanding, by Chris McWigan at the Community Foundation, has brought a group of people together,
right,
and their goal is to, at some point, bring good ideas there. But we got music in the background, so we're going to take a break, and we will be back with Eye on Muskegon.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
I knew I was stuck at this kid's house. Bedroom gone.
Fox News Radio, I'm Jared Halpern. Greece's prime minister set to step down in the wake of that country's financial crisis. Party sources say George Papadreou could resign today or tomorrow.
There are two options that are being looked at by PASOK Party at the moment. One of them involves Mr. Papandreou resigns, and then a compromise candidate that's acceptable to the main parties would then take over. The alternative scheme that PASOK are looking at, someone from within the PASOK Party taking over temporarily.
Sky News reporter Robert Nisbet in Athens shaking in the Sooner State. A magnitude 5.6 near Shawnee, Oklahoma, felt as far away as Wisconsin.
There really is no preparation.
A 4.0 aftershock near Oklahoma City this morning. So far, little damage reported. And 45,000 soon to be off and running in New York. The weather considered perfect for the New York City Marathon. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Have to die.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBC forecast. For today, windy. We're expecting winds out of the south at 20 to 30 miles an hour, occasionally gusts over 40. Otherwise, a mix of clouds and sunshine with a high around 60. Decreasing clouds tonight, but still windy. Southwest winds 20 to 30, a low of 48. Tomorrow, sunshine and clouds together again with a high of 58. Southwest winds 5 to 10. And it looks like rain and thunder for Tuesday with highs around 55. Keeping you informed, News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Hey, folks, this is Dave Ramsey. You know, Washington can't fix its money problems or yours. You are the answer. Recovery starts with you. That's why I've partnered with my friends at Gold Stash to bring my Total Money Makeover Live back to Grand Rapids Van Andel Arena on May 5th. And we're going to make it ridiculously easy to attend this event. Seats are just $29. Get them online at DaveRamsey.com or call 888-22-PEACE. That's 888-227-3223.
And we are back at Eye on Muskegon. And again, give us a call if you want to participate in the conversation with John VanWyke and Oscar Osbo. 830-3109. That's 231-830-3109. We want you to be on the radio, folks. We're talking Muskegon Summer Celebration. And in our last segment here, John, you've got tremendous experience in some real successful events that have recently happened here. Give me some ideas of what you think could be done going forward. We've got this new task force. They're looking for ideas. What ideas do you think are good ideas?
Well, I think the one of the things that this task force should concentrate on is the future of festivals in Muskegon, the economic impact that it's had on bringing festivals to Muskegon, what the long-term objectives are in doing that. They really need to do some, and how they're going to fund them long-term. I mean, it's not, oh, my God, what are we going to do next 4th of July, or what kind of bands are going to come to Muskegon next year. And maybe they can be able to do something next year. I don't know if they've got timing in order to do that. I think they probably can do fireworks on 4th of July, okay, and a couple other things. But
well, do you think that they have time at this point? Here we are in November. to get sponsors and to get contracts signed for bands for next year?
Big corporate sponsors. I had a lot of experience with this over the past 30 years with my position at the phone company, and also because of that, being a member of the Michigan Festival and Events and the Council of Michigan Foundations, and dealing with large corporate sponsors, whether it be Kellogg's or Pfizer or whoever it is. It's November already, folks, and they do their budgets in literally an August, September time frame. Their board of directors prove their fiscal budgets in October, November. You got to plan for the next year, and that's where your sponsorship and advertising dollars are going. So to start right now to go out and get a major corporate sponsor, very unlikely that they're going to find somebody of over $5,000 to be a sponsor.
So that's going to be a toughie.
Yeah.
We got a call on line one. Let's listen to that caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello there. Yes, I had a couple questions. First off, what sponsors did Summer Celebration have? You said there were 4 sponsors, and they pulled out. Who were the 4 sponsors that pulled out? That's my.
Let me answer that one right now. The only ones, the big ones that I'm aware of, were Esurance, which is the internet insurance company. They decided to pull out for strategic reasons.
They pulled out of the state of Michigan in advertising because of some insurance.
And the other was Chrysler, who, of course, was bailed out of bankruptcy. So those, and they were late pullouts. What was your other question?
My other question is, since this is folded, what would be wrong with Clear Channel and Cumulus, the 2 companies, commercial companies that own radio stations in Muskegon, Michigan, putting on the festival? And each have its own sound stage.
That's not a bad idea.
Actually, caller, this is that's not a new concept, and those are the kind of things that obviously Bike Time has looked at over the last couple of years, and owner of Hot Rod Harley Davidson have been very instrumental in working with those 2 companies to do the stage down at Hot Rod Harley Davidson, and obviously with the birthday bash that WMUS does every year, they're actually in the festival business, and believe me, that should be a part of the planning. The 2 radio networks that are here in Muskegon, along with the public broadcasting folks at WGBU, all ought to be involved in what's the future of festivals in West Michigan.
You know what I find interesting with the caller here is that he's got good instincts, and it seems to me that what perhaps this new group ought to be opening their eyes to is some citizen input, because there's a lot of people out there like this caller and others who might bring some unique ideas to the table. Did you have any other questions?
Yes, I did.
Okay, last one.
My last question is, we're the only, for this size to do a festival 11 days is amazing, because where I come from, they didn't have anything like this. And my question is, moving forward, we're not going to have it next year probably, am I right?
That's likely, yes.
Why don't we, what should be looked at here is maybe wait and plan down the road maybe a couple, 2 or 3 years to start having it again, because you got to make it affordable for people, for one thing. And in this area, you have a large percentage of people that are of low income, so what you got to do is plan for that, and plan for the fact that maybe you're going to take a loss.
Yeah, okay, and that's a great point, and that's what we're going to go into right now.
Yeah, very great point, and it may take on a whole different complexion. It may not be an 8-day or 11-day festival. It may be a 5 or 6-day festival, but a couple of different newer ones that might spring up. If you remember a number of years ago, if you were around in an organization that was called New Muskegon that formed like this, and they said, what are we going to do? They actually were concentrating on what's called the shoulder season, or September through May, and they said, geez, what are we going to do with Muskegon and everything else? The outgrowth of that was the JC Snowfest and Shoreline Spectacular and a couple other things that they tried over the years with some Halloween parties and some things, but it was an outgrowth of a community response to if it's going to be a tourist economy, if that's going to be a very important part of our economy, what are we going to do the entire year? And so I would think that this committee is going to focus not just on that 4th of July weekend, but festivals on the whole. And what do we need to do in Muskegon to make this a destination spot for concerts? Because it's a huge part. If you look at taking away Summer Celebration and what that brings into the economy into Muskegon, and all those businesses from gas stations to bars, restaurants, convenience stores that benefit from this kind of an operation, and you take that away, and it's all of a sudden being pulled away from the community, how does that impact the downtown businesses?
Well, John, let me play devil's advocate here. Obviously, losing Summer Celebration, everyone agrees, is a tragedy. It's a big problem. But I'm going to maybe disagree with you here. I don't disagree that a group should be formed. I think that your ideas are excellent in terms of a big picture group. But isn't the big picture group really in part at fault for where we ended up today, because they weren't focusing on the victory. They were looking county-wide, community-wide. They were not focusing on making that particular event successful.
I think what this group ought to be focusing in on is the long term. What's it going to take to make things successful in the future? And obviously the number one glaring thing that we don't have here that Milwaukee does have, and that the DT Energy Center in Ravinia in Chicago, we don't have a concert venue here. Heritage Landing is not a concert venue. It wasn't planned that way. It was planned for a public park. It was a big fight on the County Planning Commission to even build the berm that's there. Even that gradual increase in the property, the elevation of the property, that was fought like crazy by a whole bunch of people. They wanted a piece of flat land down there.
Okay, but we do have what we have. Now, you've got experience, hands-on experience. Actually, you're the guy who, at least from my standpoint, really was the, if not the leader, certainly one of the biggest movers and changers. An agent of change, by the way. Well, congratulations on being awarded that designation. But with Bike Time. Now, Bike Time came in out of nowhere. It appears from everything to be very, very successful. Why did Bike Time succeed, and what can we learn from that?
Well, number one, we had huge benefactors. In Doc and Carl down at Hot Rod Harley Davidson, who wanted to obviously build a new building in downtown Muskegon, wanted a huge grand opening, and were willing to spend the money to make it happen. Literally, they're a huge sponsor. They continue to be a huge sponsor of Bike Time.
Okay.
And they're right there.
But what you have is a private company.
We've got a private company
that's benefiting from it.
That are givers in the community.
What else are they doing?
Plus the fact that, the first couple of years, financially, if you looked at those books at Bike Time, it didn't make any money.
Okay.
And we put on some concerts at Heritage Landing. We learned a lot of lessons not to do that. The biking community that's coming into Muskegon didn't want to hear the big bands. They wanted to hear good bands, but they didn't want to stray off Steel Horse Alley or Western Avenue.
That was my experience.
And so we've gone with that and going to hiring an outside promotions company who we gave them the charge. This festival will, at worst, break even.
Now, would a company like that be worth bringing in to run Summer Celebration?
I think they need to talk to them. I think they need to talk to companies. There are several big-name companies. This company that we happen to hire for Bike Time and that I've worked with Power Tour and bringing into Muskegon, they do 300 events nationwide every year, from monster truck shows to concerts to different kinds of venue. Hot Rod Power Tour, Muskegon Bike Time are just two of the events.
And an outfit like that might be able to move quickly enough to even possibly resurrect the show for next summer.
They've got a department that works with national sponsors depending on what kind of event it is. If it's a motorsporting event, they work with Lucas Oil and big name companies that they deal with on a regular basis. And again, professional staff. They've got professional graphic artists. They can design a poster overnight. I mean these kind of things. It's a company that they're to make money, obviously themselves, but they're there to make events successful in every community that they go to.
Well, it seems that there's little question in my mind that we're in trouble. We need to look to other places, and having
also,
a local place.
And we also need, Jim. I know you don't like the word increased taxation, and I'm not proposing that at all. But we need to look at the way other states and other communities fund their festivals and events, whether it's City of Milwaukee, City of Chicago, the bigger venues, and even smaller venues like Sturgis, South Dakota, and how that's funded in South Dakota.
Let's come back to that. We got a caller on the line. Caller?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, people have probably mentioned this before, but I just thought I'd give you my 2 cents. How about focusing the summer celebration on the 4th of July holiday?
Get a little deeper in that. What do you mean?
Well, have the fireworks.
Okay.
Have the art fair, which has always been really popular.
And a moneymaker.
Yeah. And ratchet it back as far as the music goes.
And I think that's probably one of the things I'll be looking at. I almost got to believe that. I mean, again, you're absolutely right. The art fair has been very successful. Arts and crafts fair has been very successful, and it doesn't lose money. And again, ratcheting it back, it's a very good idea, and then concentrate around 4th of July weekend and maybe bring in a band. But again, to bring in a band to Heritage Landing is the infrastructure costs that now have been, in the last few years, have been spread over 10 days or 11 days or 8 days this year. The infrastructure costs of building everything at Heritage Landing for one concert would be tremendous. The cost that would have to be passed on.
But the caller's point is perhaps that maybe we don't even make it a concert at all.
Maybe we go back to the original days of summer celebration where they had a tent.
At least as a break.
I agree with that.
Had a tent and one of these portable stages that they bring in.
Well, you don't have enough room anyway for a full audience.
Well, thank you, caller, and we've got to move on from this. Obviously, very important to our community. My thought would be communicate at this point. They've made it public. Communicate with the Muskegon Community Foundation.
Yep.
But, it's another big week aside from the summer celebration. But, the big spenders are out there. They're spending. The rest of us, the supporters of common sense and responsible governance and the people who actually pay those bills, are going to be looking at what's happening locally. Again, if the county and the cities continue to spend themselves broke, there's not going to be the monies to do these other things. And I will be, as I always have, every Tuesday and Thursday at Carmen's Cafe downtown Muskegon on the corner of Clay and Terrace from 2 o'clock to 3:15, Tuesday and Thursday this week. Interesting spending going on at the county level. You're invited to stop in, say hi, have a bite to drink. Folks, you've got to get involved. If you don't put out the effort, the big spenders will just drain us dry.
But,
go ahead.
Let me jump in here. We're talking about festivals and events in Muskegon and all the beautiful things that we've got going on here. And county government and city governments need to also look at revenue generation. And you dig into county politics quite a bit?
Oh, quite a bit.
Have you looked at how the county parks are funded and how much money is generated by day use fees and camping fees and how much of the general fund of the county budget goes into the county parks?
No, I haven't, and I know that it's not.
Maybe that's another discussion we can have, and maybe invite Jim Woods in from the county parks department and people, because there are ways that government can operate something efficiently and actually not cost the taxpayers money and actually generate revenue.
Rather than taxes. What you're saying is user fees, which makes a lot of sense, and I fully agree with that. I'd like to have you back on that because I think that's a great idea. Well, folks, next Sunday, November 13th, we're talking local politics here, and politics boils down to one day, and that's the big election coming up this coming Tuesday, November 8th. Lots of issues to be decided. That's what we'll be talking about next Sunday, November 13th. Tune in. Stay tuned for Tom Sanaki's Polka Melodies. I hope you all have a great week. And our little piece of heaven here. Next week, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Well, don't you love him sometimes? Yeah, boy. Love me sometime.
Overeaters Anonymous. economists, and we have helped
Exclusively at the Home
thousands of
Depot,
people
save
just like
time and money
you
with
start
Bear
living the
Premium
life
Plus
you
Ultra
deserve.
Paint.
Find
It's
us
an
on the web
affordable
at
paint and primer
oa.org.
in one, and rated number one by a leading consumer study.
We've got to
More
find a way
saving,
to get out
more doing.
The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a
I'm sure you're
non-profit
thinking,
organization
boy,
that has
I'd
been
like to pay
helping
less for my
people
car
for
insurance,
60
but switching
years.
seems like a lot of work. All the hassle and whatnot. Well, I'm here to tell you that is simply not the case. Geico makes it so easy to switch and start saving money straight away without getting buried in a ton of paperwork.
24,000 children died.
Now, that actually happened to me once, literally. I was buried under my income taxes for 6 days.
My name is Liam Neeson, and I believe that
Haunting,
number
really.
should be zero.
For a free rate quote, visit geico.com. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
There's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind. The Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home.
Learn about the Wounded Warrior Project and other ways to support our heroes, like the Soldier Ride, sponsored by Geico.
Check out NewsTalk1090.com, keyword warrior.